Psychics. This is Michael Edley, Evidential Medium and Mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of Choose Psychics, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully everyone is in a nice, comfortable spot, ready to hear some cool information. And I am here. Well, let me first say this is Michael Edley, Psychic Medium, and I am here with my fabulous co-host, Mary Amy. What is up, Mary Amy?
Here we are. It's Two Psychics, episode 57. It's June 30th. Welcome tonight. It's about UFOs, and we have a guest, Daniel Allen Jones. He's all about strange phenomenon and UFO, and he has a platform called Vortex Media. So how are you? What's going on? I've had a very interesting last couple of days.
Yeah, it's been an interesting energy cycle, to say the least. I think all of us, myself, you, a lot of people that I know, a lot of people are navigating, loss, different scenarios around them. I recently, lost my mother, lost my, one of my dogs. You too, you've had the same experience. And the interesting thing, I think, doing this work.
This was what I had. It's so strange. I couldn't find it this week.
Okay.
This week I had to, my dog passed away. She was very, very sick on Friday. Actually, it wasn't this week, it was last week. And I couldn't find this. And then I go to get all the equipment for tonight. And there in the car. And I said, oh my God, there's that little painting of Elsa.
Wow.
I mean, this isn't Elsa, but she looked just like that little Elsa.
Yeah.
15
and it's funny because
dog.
Spirit will find ways to connect to us, and absolutely that's what's occurring with you right now in your energy. I do believe Elsa's giving you a sign, and you find, that being a lost piece of artwork that you couldn't find, you were searching for, and now you suddenly came across it. Coincidence? No, I don't think so. I think Elsa's sending you a sign, just like I received my own signs, from my dog. And it's just, I think a lot of people right now are going through this heavy energy cycle, and we've discussed this, in detail in a lot of our previous shows, is being very present and being very mindful of the energy we're absorbing, the energy we're putting out. But it's especially integral when we're dealing with loss that's very close to us, and the grief and the pain, because it's so easy for the human emotions to pull us into that, that negative downward spiral, or the, and I think it's weird. The emotions pull us on that cycle where we should be focusing on the love and the joy that we had together. And the physical loss, I think it's very difficult, even for us that actively work in this, to just, it's very hard to process initially, because the human emotions, they take over and they want to harness that. But the one thing I can say, and we had a real deep, in-depth conversation about this earlier today, and just to kind of hit on that a little bit.
It really,
and
it really, really did.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. It helped me. I went and then meditated and outside, and then I had kind of an epiphany, because I felt tremendous guilt. Because I was the mom. I'm the mom, and she wasn't well. What did I do wrong? So I went back through the last 3 years. Where did it go wrong? Because I'd never felt this kind of devastation in my whole life that I felt in the last 2 days.
And that's the thing, it's the human emotional side of us wants to look at, what could I have done differently? What could have happened differently? How could this have, of changed or been different, or, whatever the variables are around that. I just think it's so important for us to think about, the positive memories and the beautiful life, we've given our pets. And it's tough. We have that unconditional love, and they're bonded with us, and they're with us day in, day out, living with us. And it's weird not having that energy around. But the one thing from being a medium and doing this and dealing with such devastating loss with some of the clients that I've had, people losing children. There's no difference between losing a human companion, friend, family member, and losing a pet. I mean, the energy it's just as integral to us. It's just as important that we honor that. I think we have to honor that grief that's around that. But the one thing from connecting with spirit, I can tell you is they want to see us live the most joyous, happy life. And when we're navigating that grief, I think from the other side, they want to just imprint their love and their energy on us so we can try to lift ourselves through that pain and that grief. And rather than go into that downward spiral, grief can be one of the most powerful energies to propel you forward. And grief is probably the most powerful energy. And when we can harness that and utilize it for our highest and best, when we're navigating through the turmoil of grief, trauma, pain, but we can find the light in that and move through it, it will absolutely shift us into a completely new, powerful, energetic cycle, unlike anything we've experienced. And it's so important to understand that they want to vicariously live this physical existence through us. And, the spiritual realm and what I call the divine realm, where our pets and our loved ones reside, we have free will. They can't interfere with us. But what they can do is try to imprint positive energy, positive information, positive things for us to move forward in the highest and best way we can. And the way I like to put it is, our loved ones. So whether that's a pet, a family member, a friend, they want to see us joyful and they want to vicariously live through that joy and that happiness and those high vibrations. And if we're stuck in that grief and that trauma and that pain, it's I just think it's hard for us to truly see the benefits that we've had and all the love that we've given that animal. So that's the one thing I could say. We all process grief in a different way, and there's no right or wrong way to process grief. But when we can utilize it for our highest and good, and even when we're feeling that deep pain and that deep trauma, but we can push that forward and we can utilize that energy in the most positive way. They're jumping for joy for us, and they're so their energy is trying to lift us and help us move through that. So that's the one thing I would tell you, Mary Amy, and anyone else out there is when you start being pulled into, I could have, I should have, I would have, replace that with the positive memory or, any of those moments where you and your dog just vicariously were in such a joyous love for each other. We have to embrace that energy. And when we can feel and connect to that energy, we can allow that energy to just expand through that heart chakra, through our soul space. And that's the thing. We have to remember we are a powerful, powerful soul. We are a spiritual being having this human existence. And we are so connected to them. And what I find is sometimes we're even more connected to them when they transfer over into spirit. We just have to be present and mindful, and we just have to try to navigate that grief in the best way we can. And if it's small steps, whatever that may be, if you're being overwhelmed by grief and you got to get a time out and go, do some breath work or go sit in nature or, whatever that is for you and for anyone listening, whatever will help you clear your mind, whether that's that special song. And the interesting thing with a lot of my pets that have passed, I've connected to their energy initially through music. And it's been a very profound, powerful connection for me. So I always look for that, that song lyric, or, I try to find those things in my, my daily journey. And when I open to that, I always tend to connect, even if initially the grief is overpowering a little bit, that love will break through that grief.
I just want to say, I know we have someone holding for a reading. For me, it was so difficult the last 3 days because it happened on Friday, because just to get through any task, to do anything, leaving my home, being back, because then I was looking for her to take care of her, take her for walks, because I've been carrying her down like the stairs for the last 6 months, up and down stairs, 2 flights of stairs, multiple times a day. So I'm used to like her being right here and me carrying her. And I I kept trying to coach myself what because I haven't had anything like this. And I think it's because she gave me unconditional love. It's because I wanted to take care of her. It's because I'm a nurturer. And I just finally said, I said, I have to go to the gym. I haven't gone. Maybe this will help. I remember working out in the gym, like in this class, and I was just saying, I was breathing like what you just said. And I just said, okay, this is so hard. Don't go past this minute. Just be in this minute right now. Just get through this minute.
Yep.
Just get through
Yep.
this minute. Don't think ahead. Don't think behind. Just think in this minute. And that's kind of what I did. I ended up just getting through it by minute. And then I spoke to you. I got home and you called right when I was standing outside, about to go inside. And you really, really helped me because I needed some wisdom. I needed someone who understands this. You talk to a lot of people who have losses. You know, our pets give us so much loyalty, and they are just unconditionally loving us. So I'm very grateful that I had Elsa in my life because she made it so much better. This little 15-pound dog was stronger than I am. And I'll forever be grateful to her and love her forever. Okay, so should we bring on our guest? Because
But
we
yeah,
have,
just the one thing I want
not
to
a
say real
guest,
quick.
a caller, not a guest.
we
Yes,
we have our guest
you have it.
Daniel in a little bit, but the one thing we have to remember too is when we love so deep and so powerfully, that grief is going to be just as powerful, you know? So we have to understand when that love is so strong, that grief is going to be just as strong, you know? But don't let it take anything away from that love, because that love is a beautiful thing that you shared with Elsa and
Oh,
anyone else out there that lost a loved one. You know, just remember that love and remember that energy, and that's the energy that's going to allow you to connect to them in spirit.
I still feel her because I guess that I am empathic and I am intuitive. And the first night I share with you that I had this dream, and literally it was her. It was,
Mm.
well, not a dream. I closed my eyes and it was a visual. It was a lucid dream. It was her
Mm.
energy. It was everything. So yes, I agree with you. Okay, let me bring her on. I have to just jump up for 1 second.
And again, so anyone that's listening, while Mary Amy is bringing on our caller, we do have Daniel Jones coming up with some really cool stuff we're going to be talking about.
Yes, and a little bit. Okay, so hi, are you there? Hello. Let's see. Ask to unmute. Come on, unmute.
Okay. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How are you? Do you
I'm
see me or no? I had my video on, but I don't know what
okay.
happened.
So no, I don't see you.
Okay.
We
We'd
can't
love
see
to
you,
see you.
but yeah, we would
Hold
love to
on.
see you if you
Okay,
can get that on.
perfect.
Hi. Let me figure this out. What? Okay. Oh, there you go.
All
You
right,
got
we
me?
can see you.
Okay. Okay,
Hello,
good.
hello. Welcome to Two
Hi.
Psychics.
Hi.
How are you? And who do we have the pleasure of speaking with tonight?
My name is Nicole.
Nicole.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Nicole. I am Michael Edley,
Hi,
psychic
Michael.
medium. I'm
How are you?
so happy you're joining us tonight. Can you tell us where are you calling in from, the East Coast or
Yes,
West Coast?
I'm in the East Coast. Yeah.
All
Right.
right. So,
Probably like a few right near where Mary is, actually.
oh, nice, nice. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So you are close. Excellent. So what I know, you kind of know the show, you know the topics we talk about. What do you want us to get into? Is there a specific question, or do you want us to just kind of open up and connect to your energy and
Yeah, that'd
kind
be
of pull
great.
through
I would
information?
love that to just see what what you're
Okay.
feeling and yeah.
All right. So Nicole, if you can just give me your name slowly, just your first name. I want to connect to you on an energetic level by hearing your name and your
Okay.
voice. That'll help me
Okay.
connect to your energy.
Okay. Nicole.
Okay. All right, Nicole. So what's interesting, so I like to share how things are coming to me. And as our energy starts connecting and starts opening, I'll start to get pieces of information. What's very interesting about you. As I start connecting to your energy, I don't know if someone around you in spirit is starting to imprint this piece of information on me, or this is psychic information I'm picking up about you. But why am I seeing Yankee Stadium? I'm seeing like Yankees banners, Yankees hat. What's the deal with the Yankees?
Oh, so I had a cousin, an older lady who was like a mother to me. She was an aunt, and she died
All right,
a few
don't give
years
me
ago.
too much information.
Oh,
Don't give me
okay.
too much information. I
Oh,
want to pull
okay.
the
Oh,
information in through you.
okay.
Okay,
She loved the
so you do have
Yankees. That
it's
was like her
interesting.
thing.
Okay, so like her thing is definitely the Yankees because it's funny. I'm literally seeing like a banner. I'm seeing like I'm seeing like the old Yankee Stadium for some reason. Now, okay, so she would have been connected.
Yeah.
Let me just. All right, so you. The interesting thing is there's a lot of energy around you. Okay, interesting. I have to talk about the male connection to you. So I have to ask about this aunt. I don't know if she's connected to dad's side or dad's side, but so I'm getting overwhelming energy when we talk about this to my right side. Usually when I get to my right side, it's connected to dad's energy or somewhere in there connecting to dad. Was she connected to dad or is she connected to dad or dad?
No, she's on my mom's
spirit
side.
with her. She was on your mom's side. Okay, so it's interesting. She's coming through on dad's side. So what is interesting? So I have to talk about. All right, so there's two. So I have to talk about an A and a J. So significance around. So let me ask you this: is your father's in spirit?
Yes.
Okay. Is he has he passed in the last 3? Is it like why am I seeing 3 for March, or is he 3 years ago? Did he pass, or within the last 3 years, or
Within the
around
last,
March?
so yes, within the last 3 years, yes.
Okay, so that's what his energy. It's interesting because your aunt's energy, I do believe, is bringing his energy through for me. And it's interesting because she's pulling it through to my left side. Was he connected to baseball or the Yankees also?
Not really, no.
He wasn't. Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, so I want to stay on the Yankee thing for a second as I kind of open and allow this energy to unfold. Around your, so I'm gonna talk about your aunt on mom's side that I do believe is imprint. So she would your aunt. Is there an A around her? Is there an A connected to her or you? I'm seeing. So it's interesting.
Her mother and her father both names started with A.
Okay, so that's your aunt. So your aunt's starting to drop.
And she was born in March. She was born in March.
And she was born in March. Oh, awesome. Okay, I appreciate that validation. Okay, so that's what she showed. Okay, so your aunt. The funny thing about your aunt, I'm like seeing. I don't. It's weird with her. I'm not actually hearing her clairaudiently. So I don't know if towards the end she wasn't able to speak and she just wants to convey that, or she's just very good at imprinting visuals on me. So clairvoyantly, I'm seeing like lots of 70s sitcom. I don't know why I'm seeing I Love Lucy. I'm seeing like The Honeymooner. I'm seeing like old classic like sitcoms from the 70s. And in that mix, I'm seeing like Yankee banners and Yankee information. So is there a connection to her? Like, I don't know if you watched old sitcoms or
no, not really. Not really.
Is there, does she look like Lucy or is it, I don't know why I'm seeing I Love Lucy. That's interesting.
No.
All right. So let me just talk about that. Okay. So weird that I'm seeing that and I'm connecting. She's dropping through like the March date, the A's that are around her. I would definitely say the A initial or the A initials are connected to her. I think you have a lot of spirit kind of piggybacking off her. So just let me just sit with this energy for, I just kind of want to allow this energy to expand. I do believe she's showing me symbolism of things that may come across your field of vision or in front of you that almost are a symbol of them, of your loved ones in spirit. So like Yankees banners, like a Yankee Stadium. So obviously you're from New York, so you might see a lot of Yankee things, but for some reason I'm seeing like banners and like like Yankee flags. I would just be aware if you see that. That might be your aunt kind of giving you, a little hello. But I also want to be aware of the name like Lucy. I don't know why, or the L. There's no Lucille, Lucy, someone around you. Don't think.
Well, my mom's middle name is Lucille. Yes.
That's my middle name.
Okay.
It is.
And I'm not connecting to mom in spirit. Mom's still here, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they're bringing my attention to mom, and they're bringing my attention to information from dad. That's going to be so dad. So through your
Mhm.
aunt is opening the energetic connection. It's funny.
Mhm.
That's why I like to try to explain like how I'm
Mhm.
getting it, how I'm,
Mhm.
and literally I just jumped in. This is no
Mhm.
meditating. This is me like kind of
Mhm.
just jumping
Mhm.
into mediumship, turning the volume knob up
Mhm.
and going. So
Mhm.
I have to allow the energy to kind of unfold around you
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
connect to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the Lucille, we would definitely, so your that name is attached to your mom. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so let me just sit with this energy a little bit, because it's very heavy energy. I mean, there's
Mhm.
still, so I'm just gonna say I do feel as if dad's energy kind of
Mhm.
piggybacking off your aunt's energy, and
Mhm.
for your aunt to say like the Lucille thing, she's trying to give me a lot of symbol, well, to show
Mhm.
me that she's trying to give me a lot of symbolism of what's going on, and as a medium
Mhm.
I have to take those pieces of information, kind of
Mhm.
connect the dots and say, okay, what
Mhm.
are you trying to convey here? They
Mhm.
definitely, I would definitely say mom is dealing, not that we don't want to talk about you, but I would say from the other side, they're seeing you navigate the passing and the grief, maybe in a
Mhm.
slightly better, more positive way. So I would say
Mhm.
mom, definitely from dad's passing, is dealing with some like
Mhm.
debilitating grief, some trauma.
Mhm.
Like I feel like she's still kind of stuck in that
Mhm.
moment.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
me not hearing them is I feel like that's indicative of them telling me that like there's some unfinished closure, or someone wasn't able to speak to them, or they weren't able to say final goodbyes.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
something with not hearing or not speaking the
Mhm.
final goodbye. So were
Mhm.
you or mom not able to be there?
No, we were there, but my mom has rapid dementia ever since. So now yeah, she's not, she can't speak, and yeah. This is this.
Okay. And that's how spirit will
Edley was
imprint
saying a
information.
lot of stuff.
So
Sit down. My
is mom
husband.
there with you? Is
No,
mom is mom with you? Oh,
my
your
husband, but
husband.
I just want to see if something, I just want to see if you, okay. This is stuff.
No, if he's there, he can sit with you and he can connect. He's more
Okay.
than welcome to be. I just don't know. Like I may start connecting with his energy. I
You
may.
might. Okay.
Oh, so the interesting thing. I mean, there's a lot of spirit, and there
Mm-hmm.
could be a lot of spirit around him, and with
Mm-hmm.
him being there, like that's why I felt a little overwhelmed. Like we have a whole
Mm-hmm.
choir of spirit around you guys. I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you appear to be pretty young to me, so I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
expecting like that overwhelming amount of spirit to start
Mm-hmm.
stepping through. I also have to talk about. So when they gave me the A initial, and I'm going to be bouncing around a little bit because I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
I literally I'm holding the energy of three to
Mm-hmm.
four spirits right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to talk. Is there significance to the J around your aunt, around dad? I think dad or like you. They're bringing my awareness to the J. So I don't know if there's a John, a Joe. I
And
feel like they're almost
AJ, wait,
AJ. Yeah. What's the AJ?
that's my husband's father who died 3 months after my dad. His
Ah,
initials are
okay.
AJ. And
So all right.
yes.
So wow. So we have a lot of spirit coming through. So AJ, and that's funny that they gave me AJ. And I'll just share. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see what I'm
That's the
writing, but I write it
AJ.
down.
Okay.
And they
Yeah.
gave me AJ initially before I even started
Mm-hmm.
connecting to dad's energy. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted I want to share. So the AJ is absolutely coming through. His
Right.
energy is imprinting on me.
Okay.
Is there a Yankees connection to him?
Does your dad have a Yankee? No, no, not with him. No.
Not Yankees, or like a baseball connection? Like it
Mm-mm.
just a no? Okay. So I'm
Mm-mm.
definitely, so let me separate out the energy. I have a
Okay, we
lot
got
of
a lot of
energy
people
coming
coming
in,
in. Yeah.
and I'm kind of blended into all of them. So I got to separate this out a little bit just so I
Mm-hmm.
can bring a little clarity through for you. Okay. So let me just reiterate. So your aunt, absolutely, the Yankees connection to her. She's honoring that. She's honoring I guess, knowing that connection in her, knowing how much she loved that. Again, that she gave me the
Mm-hmm.
three, the March. She's also in that. Gave me
Mm-hmm.
the three dad passing with the
Mm-hmm.
3 year. I believe that's a 3 year mark within the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I'm not hearing them. So, and interesting. And as I'm pulling that through, we get the AJ. We also get the A. So they gave me the A, and then it's funny that I'm looking at the
Mm-hmm.
A and they drop in a J around her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how spirit will connect and will let us know that they're okay. They're around. They're trying to connect to
Mm-hmm.
us. So I have to. I'm gonna separate out the AJ energy right now,
Mm-hmm.
dad-in-law's energy, but he's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely here. He's absolutely acknowledging your
Mm-hmm.
husband's presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have to talk about your father though, and the connection to mom. So is so I also they're younger female. I don't know if he's bringing my attention to sister. Do you have a sister?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
younger
do have
sister,
okay.
like you said, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so dad is bringing my awareness to. So first off, let me just preemptively say this. Do you feel like you're not connecting to, like, do you feel like I wish I could connect to dad, I wish I could get the signs, and like you're just not like really seeing them or hearing them or feeling the presence? Because I feel like he's trying.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Like sometimes I feel the presence, but not as much as I thought I would feel the presence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting thing. So now as I start to connect more with your energy, I now again I may be blending some energies because we're doing
Mm-hmm.
this really quick. We're jumping in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing like a red and black flannel coat. I don't know if dad was what's the deal with the coat, with the red and black coat, or like a flannel. Was there like a flannel jacket or something that looks flannel or red and black stripes that they would be showing me this jacket?
Not that I can think of. No, not that I can think of.
All right, just be so like dad or dad-in-law didn't like weren't big into wearing flannels, like a flannel jacket or like a flannel shirt.
Not really, no.
All right. I'm not sure why I'm seeing that. Just be aware of a red and black flannel jacket. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'm seeing. All right, so it's weird. I don't know why I'm seeing all this crazy sports symbolism around you guys. So I don't know if I'm seeing like the cheat. I'm seeing like a red and black football outfit. Does someone play football or a football team that would be like red and black or a red and black uniform?
Not that I know of, no.
Not sure why I'm seeing that. So I don't know if they're giving me some kind of like a sign that you're going to see or come across. I'm not sure why I'm seeing a red and black flannel, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, they're showing me a red and black flannel.
Mm-hmm.
Just be aware of that, or be aware if you see someone that
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
resembles or makes you think of dad, or your
Mm-hmm.
husband makes them think
Mm-hmm.
about, his father, and there's like a red and black jacket or a
Mm-hmm.
flannel or something. I almost feel like they're imprinting pieces of information on me to
Mm-hmm.
let you know they're around, to let you know they're connected to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me just. I mean, there's a lot of heavy energy
Gosh.
around both of your fathers passing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just trying to sit with this energy. I wish we had a private reading right now so we could
Mm-hmm.
really like connect on this. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna, um, so I'm basically gonna be bouncing back and forth, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to marry. I just gotta. I'm gonna a lot of energy coming through, so you can pull your reading through in a little bit. I just want to bring through this information. I want to try to separate out the
Mm-hmm.
fathers so I can pull each of their information. So your father Nicole is he's talking about, he's bringing my awareness to the connection to your sister. Or is everything good with you and your sister right now? Or is he bringing my awareness to like
Yeah,
her not?
everything's good. Yeah, everything's
Okay,
good. Yeah.
so let me ask you this: was there something in? I almost feel as if like there was something like someone's holding grief around not being able to say something or present something, because it's weird that I'm not hearing them like I normally do, and I almost feel like they're trying to imprint like they heard the message or they saw the letter. Like I feel like, and if your husband can connect to this, just have him yell it out, because I have so much
No,
energy
he didn't.
flowing
He's
through.
not listening now.
Oh,
Maybe it was too much for him. Just yeah,
okay,
he.
okay, that's
I
fine.
don't know.
So
He's not. I don't know where he went
okay, so
right now. Yeah,
let
maybe.
me just share this. Okay, so for
Mm-hmm.
the name AJ to come through
Mm-hmm.
and for his father to make his presence known,
Mm-hmm.
I have to say his father is bringing through that information just
Mm-hmm.
to let your husband know that he's okay. He's there. He's on
Mm-hmm.
the other
Mm-hmm.
side. The interesting thing, his father passed quickly with their chest. Like, so as I connect to AJ and I connect to the energy of AJ,
Mm-hmm.
my chest is getting very heavy and I'm having a hard time like swallowing. So I don't know what's going on with my throat and my chest.
Mm-hmm.
What was the deal with his throat and his chest?
Mm, I don't
Was
think
he
there was
not
a
able was he not able to
no.
speak at the end?
No, he was. I just think sometimes he had like coughing or just but not in the
Yeah.
end, no.
Okay, so because he's showing me that, so I don't
Mhm.
so this is what I really feel the energy is. I feel like there was something that like I wish I had said I love you. I wish I had said this. I feel like there's something that your husband is holding some deep grief on that he wasn't able to say this or he wasn't
Mhm.
able to
Mhm.
bring
Mhm.
this word through or bring this
Mhm.
message through to your father. But listen, he can still speak it. So I would say
Mhm.
tell your husband if I feel like he's dealing with some deep, heavy grief around this that he's
Mhm.
still trying to process.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it- it's weird. I want to share. I would say it's very important for your husband to connect to his father's energy. Think about
Mhm.
his
Mhm.
image, what he
Mhm.
sounded like, what he smelt like. Connect to that energy
Mhm.
and speak the words he wants to say. If he feels like there's some unfinished business or
Mhm.
something that still needs to be said,
Mhm.
AJ is coming through, and AJ is giving me his name in that way because he wants your husband to know
Mhm.
he is still connected to him and he's
Mhm.
still hearing it. So I
Mhm.
really feel as if he just needs to be more present and be more mindful. And I
Mhm.
do believe like when he's dealing with the grief and he's feeling that energy of dad and the pain and the loss of
Mhm.
dad, at
Mhm.
that point I do believe he's going to be connecting to dad's energy. So in those
Mhm.
moments when he's feeling that, I
Mhm.
do believe he needs to speak his piece because I do
Mhm.
believe there's some either unsettled or unfinished
Mhm.
information or something that wasn't spoken or something that wasn't said.
Mhm.
And dad, it's important for him to know dad can still hear him. So
Mhm.
I want to leave your husband with that with love and light. Now
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want to reconnect.
Mhm.
I wasn't planning on that. I wasn't planning on that other energy
Mhm.
jumping through, but
Mhm.
I'm glad I was able to bring through his name at the very
Mhm.
least to show him because I know nothing about you. I know nothing about your husband. I know absolutely
Mhm.
nothing that's going on with you guys. So for
Mhm.
me to bring that little piece of evidence in, I hope
Mhm.
it gives him a little bit of I don't want to say a little bit of closure, but I
Mhm.
hope at least he can acknowledge that there's no way
Mhm.
this guy on the other side knew my dad's name, doesn't know me. I don't
Mhm.
even know your husband's name, but I
Mhm.
can tell you dad was yelling, AJ loud and
Mhm.
clear to me. And your husband needs to know he is connected to his dad. Dad is definitely
Mhm.
trying to connect to him. So
Mhm.
just open that portal, open up that divine path
Mhm.
and allow the conversation to continue.
Mhm.
So now, with that being said, I'm going to bounce the energy back around. Okay. I'm just trying to see what they're showing me about the. This is going to be weird. Was there like a new piece of clothing that's like red and black, or were you wearing something red? They keep on. So your dad keeps
Mhm.
bringing my attention to like red and black. Like for some reason, I don't know if I thought I'm seeing a flannel, but I might be seeing like plaid or red and black. Is there something significant to the color of red and black for you or a piece of clothing or it's
Not that
weird.
I
Like,
know of, no.
hmm, just be aware of that color combination in a weird way
Mhm.
when if there's a moment where you feel like you're feeling dad's presence and
Mhm.
you're connecting to that energy, be
Mhm.
mindful of like the red and black piece of
Mhm.
clothing. So weird or so let me ask you this. With mom having dementia and you're dealing with that and a lot of that,
Mhm.
I do believe dad's energy is going to pull in and for him to also talk about your sister and mention the sister. I
Mhm.
do believe it's important for your sister to know like dad's energy is coming through. It's coming
Mhm.
through in this, he's giving
Mhm.
me the significance also of March, and we already confirmed that date of March.
Mhm.
But I would be very aware of the number three, because I'm seeing
Mhm.
that so much around you. So be aware of and it's funny because I don't normally talk about some of the common, the feather, the penny, unless they're like
Mhm.
kind of beating it over my head.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I keep on seeing the numbers and I keep on seeing the three. So I don't want to just say like the 333 or the 313 or the
Mhm.
1233,
Mhm.
but just for some reason, I want you to be very mindful of the
Mhm.
numbers around you. If you're feeling disconnected or like,
Mhm.
dad, give me a
Mhm.
sign, pay
Mhm.
attention to the numbers because
Mhm.
sometimes that's one of the easiest ways that our loved ones can show us they're
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
They give us
Mhm.
those angel numbers.
Mhm.
Now,
We're gonna have to
So
get going here because we have a guest.
yeah. All right,
We have
Nicole.
to so I have to share
Yeah. So
what I got.
Okay. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Okay, we're
Nicole,
gonna do it. We're gonna do a
yeah,
private
it's just
reading for sure.
Okay, so
yeah, the energy is so heavy. I just
Mhm.
let me just kind of close this out. I
Mhm.
wish we had more time. So I
Mhm.
just want to acknowledge again your aunt jumping through right away, bringing through the
Mhm.
Yankee symbolism, giving me the A initials of other loved ones around you, kind
Mhm.
of allowing that AJ name to pull
Mhm.
through, also giving me, kind of the month of dad's passing, the
Mhm.
Lucille talking, and then when I open a dad's name and
Mhm.
dad, to dad's energy, giving me
Mhm.
the Lucille connection that you could take his mom's middle name. I just want to say, Dad is absolutely watching over you guys. He
Mhm.
absolutely, bringing through that your sister, and I got to talk about your sister.
Mhm.
Just know he's watching and guiding over the family.
Mhm.
Yeah, reach out to me. I would love to do a private
Mhm.
reading with you, and we can kind of open to this energy a little
Mhm.
bit more,
Mhm.
and it's not so rushed. So, I
Mhm.
apologize for
Thank you
it
so
being
much. It
just
was
so
so
quick,
great.
but just know, be aware of the numbers. So that's what
Okay.
I'm going to say right now. And for you to connect to dad, just be mindful of his presence. When you start thinking about him, his energy is
Mhm.
pulling in closer to you. So just know you have that connection. For him to start coming through and jumping into this reading, and me to just
Mhm.
kind of open to it really quick, and the energy still to come through so powerfully, you're very connected to him. And
Thank you
and for
so
the for
much.
yeah.
Don't leave
So let
before I
me
can
hand
tell
it
you what
off to Mary Amy.
don't
Okay, Mary.
Okay, so right off, I immediately, Nicole,
Mhm.
I saw a train path. Okay, first I saw this train that was taking off from the station, and I thought it was going straight, but then I saw that it was more like not a straight line, it was more of a wavy line with
Mhm.
unknown destination. Okay, so I'll explain what that means. Now, I received that you travel with an entourage. You're fun, festive, whether or not you're alone or in a group. Okay.
Mhm.
Now the train represents, like bus stations represent the astral world. So in our dreams, we will sometimes dream of train stations or bus stations, someplace that there's a lot of people because
Mhm.
people from past lives visit you. Okay. So
Mhm.
for some reason, I received I saw this train leaving, okay, with an unknown destination. Okay. Then I saw a bouquet of flowers and also a bouquet of fruit, which are very positive because they are living things. And it was about you and your energy and it's about you giving, because
Mhm.
that's what I received, that you're a giver, because it's about you. It's not you receiving the bouquet of flowers or giving fruit. It's more or less that you're doing it. You're not receiving it, you're giving it. You're a giver. Okay. And you love fun and festive, love, whether or not you're alone or you're in a group. It's all about that for you. Then I saw stars, the stars in the sky. And
Mhm.
I counted, there was one, two, three. Now, this is connected to the next thing I'm about to say. So I saw this rainbow of stars, and it was related to going to a location, same as the beginning, an unknown destination. So where are you going, right? So the stars, here we have fruit, we have flowers. Okay, that's nature. We have this destination that you're going to, and now I saw it was stars, one, two, three. Okay, so there's three sections, okay, of the stars, one, two, three. So it's beginning,
Mhm.
middle, end, but I think it's where you're going. Then this was very interesting. I saw space, close. And it's about you survive by being open, and then you close yourself, and then you're open, and then you close yourself. And you want to engage, but sometimes it's overwhelming. It's like you have to put yourself. I saw the visual of a box, a closet, not literally where you're going into a box or a closet. I mean, you could. I mean, I've cried in the basement of the bottom of my closet, but I'm talking about like how you survive in your life. I received that it's like you have to close yourself off, but then you want to have the joy of being in this group and being
Mhm.
festive and in this space.
Hmm.
So my recommendation is tonight, if you want to dream about it before you go to sleep, just think about what I said related
Mhm.
train because there's someone at a train station that is going to meet with you in your dreams. That's what I'm gathering, okay? Someone from your past, obviously, someone who's passed. I don't know if it's your father. You're now relaying these different people that have passed. So I don't know if you've ever had any dreams about train stations, have you? Or bus stations?
I don't think so.
I'm not saying it's common.
Right.
Like, but the suggestion, the power of suggestion, it might come forward for you. And then you might it might become a lucid dream where you're there and you actually get the visitation. So when you have a loved one that's passed, they will visit you in dreams. And sometimes, I mean, and that's called a visitation. So that's possible. That's what I received. Okay.
That's amazing. Okay. I'm gonna let you know tomorrow. I'm gonna
I want to bring
wait, one more thing. This is a suggestion, but I gather that something will happen within the next 2 weeks. I'm not saying it's definitely you're stirring something up here because I'm making the suggestion. Okay. Sorry.
Wait,
so
something
I'm going
like
to bring
what?
through two last pieces of information
Wait, a
for you.
visitation. Okay.
So I have to talk about the date of August 13th. So I feel like either August 13th is going to be a significant cycle for you, or there's going to be, I don't know if that's a significant date in the family, a birth, a wedding, an anniversary, but I want to speak about August 13th. So just be aware of that August 13th date. And when you were speaking with Mary, for some reason, your collective keeps telling me, talk about the egg. What's the deal? Is there something with eggs? Like, what's the deal with eggs?
Nothing with eggs.
Okay, so be aware of something weird with like an egg. Or do you eat eggs? Like, are you an egg? Okay, so I don't know if there's going to be something when you're shopping or the eggs, or you're going to see the like the 3 number on the egg carton. I'm not sure, but I just have to mention eggs.
Okay.
So just be aware of that, and be aware of that August 13th.
Okay, perfect.
I want to leave you with that with love and light. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you. Thanks.
Love you. We'll be in touch again. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye,
you.
honey.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to do that. Oh. Okay. All right. So we have our guest, and we're going to present him. He's in the waiting room. That was fun. Wasn't that fun? I got some really cool information. Okay. So Daniel Allen Jones. Okay. I'm just going to admit him and talk about it. Okay. So Daniel Allen Jones is an investigator. I hope we're going to see you, Daniel. Investigative reporter for The Vortex, a show that explores the mysteries of the world and beyond. He has been researching unexplained 14, which is paranormal phenomenon, for over a decade, and has visited strange sites and conducted numerous interviews and provided media coverage for several events. He manages online groups, including the Texas UFO Network and the Texas Cryptozoology Network. He is a native Texan and professional drummer, as well as a private music instructor in Dallas-Fort Worth. There's much, much more, but here he is, and we don't want to hold him up. We were doing a reading, and I apologize. Thank you for joining us. How are you? I haven't seen you in, 3 years?
Hey, Mary, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Daniel.
It's been too long.
This is Michael Edley.
Welcome
Michael.
to Two Psychics.
Glad to
Appreciate
be
you
here
being
with
here.
you. Thanks, guys.
How are you?
Good. Just got done with work today, which is, as you just mentioned, my music lessons, and had a recital with my students over the weekend, and had some great performances. And so it's always interesting. It keeps me busy, and that's sort of my day job. But I love what I do because it affords me to be able to explore some of these other interesting topics and get involved with that fun stuff too.
Hey.
Fantastic. Always a pleasure speaking with a fellow musician. So that's great.
Awesome.
Fantastic. So I'm curious now, how did you and Mary Amy originally meet?
I would say probably maybe been 3 or 4 years ago. There were some shows I think we did on online, some podcasts about some research that I was involved with at the time, and I think that's how we got connected, was through the online communities of podcasting and communities that are interested in this type of these topics of the anomalous and the unexplained. And I think that it's hard to really think about it. But yeah, I guess it has been like 4 or 5 years ago by now.
Yeah, well, it was, I actually, it's funny, I realized because I forgot to even bring up the UFOs, like that's our topic, which is spacecraft, circular, triangle, tic-tac, orbs, eggs, disks. Now they call it UAPs, unidentified aerial anomalous phenomenon. It's about sightings, evidence, life form, transformational experiences, abduction, contactees, injury. Is it a close encounter, a maneuver, a flyby, an anomaly? And there's relations to UFOs or crop circles, cattle mutilations, abductees, implants, and then there's an organization called MUFON.com, Mutual UFO Network. We met because I guess I saw you in one of these groups related to UFOs, and I was intrigued, and then I invited you on maybe 2 shows that I did back in 2021. So it's 4 years ago. So what have you been up to? Because I remember you just reciting all this information, and back then I had no idea what was going on, but now I've done a lot of, I guess, analysis and learning about UFOs and aliens and extraterrestrials. What have you been up to lately? To share with listeners and viewers.
So, I think the last 4 years have been probably interesting for a lot of people, and this topic in general of ufology, which is the study of UFOs, has gained a lot of traction in the media and for different reasons. And I think that it's gotten a lot of people interested because of what they hear in the mainstream media, on the news, and just other outlets and places online where it's accessible. Myself, personally, I've been not only looking at historical cases, things that are being reported here in Texas with the group that you mentioned that I manage, the Texas UFO Network, and various events and things to help cultural process as well. So I think for the most part, what I've found myself really involved with is not only the study of the phenomenon of UFOs, but also the cultural impact and the ability for the culture or the community of those involved with this topic to whatever degree that we can work together or find whatever, that there are similarities of different organizations, outlooks, beliefs, the ways in which people and groups operate. And you mentioned MUFON. I've been involved with various chapters and divisions of MUFON here in Texas and even the symposium. And so what I found is that through getting involved, not only just through investigating various cases, historical and modern, but that the culture of ufology is interesting as well. So I've been doing a lot of ethnographic work, which is a cultural study, to just showcase basically how this community operates, the ways in which they function, and the outlooks, the myriad of different modes of interpretation when it comes to what people think, what people believe, what's known in various circles of academia, the government, and the civilian sector, and kind of weighing in on my own interpretation of those things, but also to kind of give perspective in different contexts, different groups that, there's a lot to this and this subject, and it's been around for a while. You mentioned close encounters, and, there are ways that various individuals have attempted to make an effort to shed light upon this subject in a way that's coherent, that's simple, and that can allow for people to kind of get a better understanding about what we're dealing with overall. Because while the notion of like alien spaceships and beings from other worlds is popular, and of course pop culture is embedded with this stuff. We see it in media and in Hollywood and all of this. So I think that with those different things going on, it gives this kind of allure that the UFO topic deals directly in some way with the idea of aliens. And I would just say that, while it's fun to be considerate that maybe there are many possibilities of what's going on here in our world and beyond, that what I found to be really helpful is to be level-headed and to approach all of this in a way that is objective, especially as someone reporting on different things. I don't want to lean into any particular confirmation bias or belief system or something that only fits into alignment with what I want or what someone else wants. So I try to look at what I can when it comes to the different outlooks and understanding what the perspectives are. And then from there, just being able to provide that in a simple, coherent way for other people and groups that I've presented at. So ethnography is a cultural study, and that's what I found myself doing a lot of anthropological work, and, you know, getting out in the field when I can and exploring different mysterious sites and talking with people who claim to have experiences and doing what I can to catalog that.
Have you your own, I know you want to ask a question, but I'm curious, have you had your own encounter, like some kind of encounter, either your contactee telepathically or physical contact where you had a sighting?
So, you know, I've had quite a few like different interesting and curious experiences. I think that would be a safe way to say that, you know, I don't really for myself claim to have any grand contact experience. I think it's all fascinating. I think people describe something that they believe really happens to them, or has happened to them. For myself, I don't have anything that really stands out to me in a way that I would say has been a springboard for my involvement in a lot of this. I approach it more along the lines of a researcher, and journalist, really. I mean, I'm not credentialed. I'm not an academic. I think that we can do what we are able to as individuals and as citizens to do our due diligence of like citizen science or citizen journalism. But I've found that through my own experiences, they're more or less personal to me, that it's not in any way something that I think could be utilized as a way to try to make some big story or platform out of, because that's not what I think is helpful with this this arena. And I think that when that happens, it becomes a spectacle, and many people often who describe like very significant encounters often find that was never really what they wanted to have happen, and not really wanting the attention in that way. But from the people I've talked with, it seems like they're a bit reluctant about some of those things. However, for myself, I've found that connecting with different individuals, and I'd say just overall, just over the years, you know, being interested in metaphysics and spirituality and synchronicities, and understanding what I can about my own reality and situations and experiences, it's led me to realize that, you know, that whatever is we're all connected with and a part of is very profound. And I do think that there's a genuine phenomenon that people experience and what they describe. But I do think that there's some distinguishable characteristics between what people describe and unfortunately other situations, which we would be naive to think that they're all real and all true. And I approach this skeptically, but like out of curiosity, not as a disregarding person, because there are a lot of people who will fabricate claims, and I've found it's very unfortunate how that muddies the waters for people who are genuinely interested in like finding out more information, especially if they have their own experience that they want to be able to maybe find others to connect with that have something similar. So I do advocate for there to be a supportive network within the community of people who are trying to understand and be able to have access to resources. For myself, I don't really claim any real experience like that as far as an encounter. I've had some strange things happen. I've seen some things in the sky that I don't know what they were, but nothing like an articulated daylight disc or anything very significant. But you know, things that I think many people generally maybe have happened, but aren't significant enough to like make any real note of. But I would say that a lot of my focus also has been to chronicle and document the legend here in Texas that we have that dates back to 1897. That's still a very like contested story of an airship crash that to me is interesting because I approach it as folklore. I think people get the wrong impression that I am here to try to tell people and to convince them that this really happened or didn't happen. And the reality is that I think that what's interesting and motivating for me in all of that is that it's an important part about understanding like how keeping things in history intact in a way that follows suit of cultural preservation. Just seeing how certain things fall to the wayside and are attempted to be maintained, even to some degree of like historical ability, historical societies and things. Even with groups like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that information can always be contained. And I only say this because through my work in trying to document the history of this story, various buildings have burned down that have lost historical artifacts and information that it's lost forever. So I've, in my own personal experience, come across many interesting people, had synchronicities. I don't claim to have any grand encounter experience, but I talk to people who do. And I think that the important part is I have met with people who claim these firsthand experiences and who otherwise have been in situations either to share before the public, share before Congress, or to share in a way that is a testimonial that they would really put themselves on in a way that they feel strongly about. So I remain objective. I remain skeptical, but in doing so, I'm not a disbeliever. I don't necessarily say that in a way that I would say, you know, I'm denying of these things, but I think it's important to like just make a qualifier that it's important to, like, you know, be open-minded and entertain and to be curious about these things, but also to not have to necessarily believe everyone that you talk to and interview. And that's been an interesting journey over the years.
Do you believe any of the people that you talk to?
Well, I would say believe is an interesting word. I would say that I think that they believe that they are describing things that they have had happen. But I would say that, that there are for sure people who I'd say are that provide a very compelling story, and maybe even some who provide an even more convincing story. Because I'm not a religious person. I don't have beliefs in that way. So I'd say that it's just semantics, but I don't necessarily ascribe to the idea that if someone tells me a really good story that I automatically believe it, but I think it's very compelling based upon what I can be shown that's intrinsic to them. It sounds amazing. If there's no extrinsic data that can help corroborate a story, then that's all it will remain. And sometimes that's all it really needs to do to inspire us to make a meaningful impact in our lives. And I think that that's where I found that the idea of studying a case of like a UFO case can be looked at in a hard evidence way, empirically, but also that the impact it has culturally is not also a direct correlation to the evidence or alleged evidence of the case itself. Because regardless of if a story happened, I mean, Roswell happened over three quarters of a century ago, whatever happened. And regardless of whatever did actually happen, the idea of the story still has a drastic impact on the culture today. So I think that the guise of folklore has helped shape the sense of what we can envision. And in our community of people who are interested in UFOs and aliens and all this stuff, I think it has opened a lot of minds and has helped to redirect the focus of society to where it is now in a way that's more open and engaging to the idea that aliens or non-human intelligence or whatever we want to call it is a reality that we are embracing and coming to terms with in some way. So I think that despite the idea of it being, if I personally believe someone or if I don't, I think that stories either way can have a meaningful impact on people's lives that make real change either way.
Michael, you are, because I have too many
questions. No, Daniel, I like your approach. I like your approach going about it in an evidential way, because me as a medium and my experiences, I was very skeptical of what was occurring to me, what I was hearing, what I was seeing, and what other people were saying were happening to them. So I had to approach it in an evidential, scientific way. I think you have that same mindset. You're approaching it in that same way. So the one big thing that I find fascinating is why all of a sudden now are we seeing governments declassify, CIA documents? They're trying to bring things more mainstream. Do you feel there's been this agenda to slowly feed it to the people because now maybe they can handle it? Or what do you think the premise is that all of a sudden this is becoming so much more mainstream and we're seeing it being acknowledged at higher levels of government?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And it should really make anyone wonder what the precedent is for as much media coverage as we've had over the last 2 to 3 years. And I think that there's some very specific reasons for that. Some, I think, probably very little can be attributed to like modern sightings. And the reality that many of the cases that have been provided to the public through media, these are not modern cases. I mean, that modern in the sense of like last several years, but they're not like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years ago cases. We're talking about, people talk about the Tic Tac case. It's plastered all over the news. It still is used a lot. That was from 2004. So we're looking at something that I think in some ways it touches upon an issue that this is not a modern or current phenomenon only, but that throughout different eras of government and military and intelligence community lenses, that we see that this has been interpreted through various ways, and that in some way, at least in not any other sense of it, but the national security of this country is that it's looked at as a defense and secrecy issue, and as a threat, not necessarily because it is threatening, but because if we as a like a military force can't identify or secure airspace or can't readily identify things, it has to be made, at least acknowledged, that there's something that we don't know, can't control, and aren't really too sure about, in a way that the Navy has completely changed their stance on how to address, report, and then act upon, as was mentioned earlier, UAP, which is it's not a new term, but has been used more recently in a huge way. Unidentified aerial phenomenon, which was then changed to unidentified anomalous phenomenon, which then goes into a whole issue of what even is that? It's so ambiguous, it could be anything. Because UFOs is pretty straightforward. It deals with things up in the sky, things that seem to be aerial. It could be vehicles. It could be something that we just don't know. And it's also conflated a lot to mean spaceship or alien spaceship. So there's a lot of conjecture there. But I would say, because of the push within the media recently, I do think that in some way it raises the standard of awareness about the topic and society overall. But in some ways, it can be a detriment because it's a double-edged sword. I think that the reason behind a lot of that and the push towards more transparency is kind of used as a guise or a front to follow out some kind of agenda by people within the intelligence community. I would say that based upon what seems to be a very strong belief in certain ideas, that people within these positions, high positions of clearance holding positions and in intelligence community and in government, that these people are convinced that there is something to this, despite some of them probably and even admitting to not having any first or direct knowledge, firsthand experience with what they describe. And some of the people who have approached Congress and have had congressional hearings to testify as so-called whistleblowers, some of these people are not whistleblowers. They are testifying either a belief or like second and third hand information that has been told to them about things that other people have described. And so the challenge is that we have huge claims, we have enormous claims in what people are describing in front of Congress, and we have no substance. And the challenge with, I think, where that lies within society is that people are ready and willing to want this to be true, and they will believe it even without proof. And I think that leads into a sort of a dangerous area of society, and in a way that I think can be mitigated with, if this is all true, as has been claimed, if there are non-human materials, technologies, biologics, beings, all of this stuff that sounds fantastic, if this is all true. And I'm hopeful. I am a romantic. I like to romanticize that this idea is a reality. I don't know that it is, but I'm hopeful that we're not the only ones out there, and maybe beyond that, that we're at least interesting enough for whoever else to at least, come check out what's going on, or that maybe are already here. So I only say that because if all of these claims about possession of technology and of beings or of organisms and all of this, if these are all real, accurate statements, then that's a pretty heavy thing for society to be able to unfold and unpack all at once. And so, to your initial question, I do think that if this is something that's helpful to bring out into the world and or at least into the Western world, and then to the world at large, in a way that we could be the first ones to say we're not alone. We've kind of gone through some initial phases of congressional hearings to the extent of making bold claims, but without anything to back it up. I think a lot of people are going to be left wondering, what was that all about? Why did we have these people come and say that the government or military or whoever has all of this stuff, and then that was it? And one thing I will say is that, and many people are kind of curious about the whole mystery mummies that were presented in Mexico. One thing that I think that's interesting, like Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson has said, and people can say whatever about him, but I will just say that he made a comment about the mummies a while back, probably over a year ago, saying, we have these congressional hearings in the U.S. They're talking about UAPs and the reality that that we're in possession of materials, but nothing was shown. And what Dr. Tyson had said is that at least with the ones in Mexico, they were at least showing something, like the bodies, regardless of if they're real or not real. At least they were saying, not only do we have aliens, but here they are. Please come take a look at them. So I think that it's still a contested, debatable issue about the mummies and the bodies or whatever people are looking at. But I think with the issue within the United States is that you have a core group of people who are connected within the intelligence community, who are, I think, convinced of the reality. And some of them, if they do have direct experience and knowledge, they're not really approaching it in a way that they can provide it, but they can attest to saying, I saw this, or I know someone who has said this, or I know these people who claim this. So that makes it like a telephone game kind of challenge of really knowing for sure what the reality is. But I would say that the core members. Go ahead.
Daniel, are they allowed to? Because isn't it like the secret space program, the black projects? Are they allowed to? Because every time they have a witness, and I watched I watched all the hearings myself, they say they have to go into a skiff. They're not allowed. It's like they're not allowed to share any of this information, or they say, I can't tell you this. And I agree with you about sharing it with the public. However, now it's going on decades of this, and you don't talk about something that doesn't exist. So if this didn't exist, I mean, I did research, and it's back from 1561. They talked about sightings. It's in art, 1880s, 1900s. The Roswell incident has been documented that there was debris that you would crush up and it would flatten back out. And from what I read, some of the debris was taken to Bell Labs, and then next thing you know, there's all these inventions, and Eureka, all of a sudden, what fit in a huge room can now be in like this small. So how did all of a sudden all of those discoveries happen like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that those are great points. And I think those are the very questions that challenge the whole field in a sense that should make anyone wonder, not only, how do we understand the information that's been shared within the last several decades about this subject in a way that is easy, is digestible, but also provides context for like how we know about these things. And so I would say that that those are really good points about the recent events within the congressional hearings, saying that you can only say so much in the public, that you have to be in a private, secure facility to be able to share more. The unfortunate thing is, I think that despite even there being we only know about the public hearings, and if they do decide to share that they have had private hearings, that they can tell us that they have had some, but they can't really tell us what was discussed. To me, I think it's interesting that the idea of an incremental revealing it seems like it makes sense for not just the idea of the UFO topic, but for something of pretty like ground-shattering nature to be unveiled to the public in smaller increments makes sense in a way that doesn't disrupt society. No one wants civil disruption in a way that's going to like upend certain things. And I think a big part of what you're getting at is that something happened along the lines that shifted our engineering capabilities to focus on energy capabilities and what we can do to engineer and manufacture things, not just in the private sector and for the military and what can be militarized, but also in the public sector and what can be made, what kind of efficiency it can give us in a way that society can be an ongoing development of upgraded technologies. But I do think that, that there's this idea that with things that were potentially found and wreckage, that these were back engineered. This is all something that people have discussed within the subject for a long time. What I've found really interesting, and I think it's good to like look at different views that people have talked about, and not just the ones that make us want to like believe that the story of people like Philip Corso, who
reading his
described,
book right now for the second time.
yeah, and I
Colonel
think
Corso, and I was like, oh my god, I skipped around last time. Oh my gosh, he was standing there, and he went into, and he lifted up this crate, and there was this body, because there was 4 or 5 bodies at Roswell in the New Mexico in 1947, and here was one floating in this liquid gel, and he was like, you know, I mean, that's pretty frightening. But he it's interesting that people that I've met that have had some kind of experience as a child or young, usually it circles back around when they get older, something else happens. It's interesting. It's not just one, it's like they have this this event that happened as a child, and then usually when they get older, or maybe a teen, they get older, then something surfaces back up, and it's like part of their life path. I mean, that's just my experience.
yeah, I mean, I do think people have like a triggered remembrance when they're confronted with something that's deep seated, and sometimes maybe subconsciously like suppress it so that it can't interfere with their day to day, or just that whatever their kind of frame of mind is. So I do think that the experiences that people describe when it comes to these sorts of things do seem indicative of like a generational trauma, along with recurring themes, but also things that tap into experiences beyond just like objects seen in the sky. I do think that it touches into a lot of other very strange and sometimes sinister and very curious issues that people wonder about, because it's hard to really to understand something that isn't tangible, that isn't really directly in front of us, that we can interact with on a regular basis as a whole, as a collective society. This is a very much fringe topic still. And to something to your point earlier about the skiffs and all of these different things, what I think is also important to mention is that there are a lot of people who make very grandiose claims about things like the secret space program and regressions. I'm very wary of anyone who comes forward to claim. I've met several people who say these things, and people have I think been revealed as being just unfortunately fraudulent liars. And I'd say that, you know, while that doesn't make up for the total sum of like everything, it should make anyone question anytime someone comes forward with a big claim that can't be documented, can't be proven in any real way. It's going to be a tough thing for people to just say, okay, yeah, like that checks out. So I think that, you know, one of the things I've found that really helps to put things into perspective is that it's important to pay attention to what people say, and not just to immediately be dismissive or accepting, but these things that are happening in Congress are amazing claims. And I like I said, I am hopeful that whether it's there's something recent and modern going on that they're dealing with, or it touches back into the historical cases of decades ago, almost a century ago at this point, that deal with potential bodies. And so if any one of those stories from either the 50s, earlier, the 40s, or even into the 60s and 70s, that there are tons of cases of crash retrievals. There are tons of stories of these reports about clandestine groups coming and cleanup crews and bodies and all of this stuff. I think if any one of those stories is actually true, it would be very difficult to know without a paper trail, like how that's been maintained, because the amount of secrecy involved for anything like even mundane stuff is extremely complicated. And so what I do see with a lot of the people who come forward to share about these stories, to share about what they testify, or at least can make coherent enough to put into print, to put in a book, to do something like Colonel Corso, and to share about something that they feel very strongly about. I think that that's a brave thing to do. But also it's something that I think it should make us wonder the medium through which people choose to try to reveal information. I think the idea of the congressional hearings is very impressive. The idea that they can't share barely anything at all, but have to say like, we have to do this in a private skip, is like kind of a big letdown, because I think that people are ready and wanting to be able to understand a little bit more. But I don't think that a huge revealing, like the idea of disclosure, that many people ascribe to, I'm not an advocate for that. Not necessarily that I wouldn't want to happen, but I don't think that it would happen in the way that the government's just going to come forward and be like, okay, guys, here's the deal. We've been lying for close to a century. Because to me, people say like disclosure is the people coming forward. I don't agree with that. I think that that's proactive, like social activism, and that's great. But I think that the idea of disclosure is to be admitting of something that has been previously concealed, deliberately withheld from the public. There's the difference between being able to tell the public that you've lied about things and then to reveal that, than just to say aliens are real. And I think that there's a lot of again, a lot of semantics with a lot of that. It's wording and it's just perspective. But I do think that people coming forward in the public with what they feel to be their reality is an important part about, freedom of speech and all of that, and be able to be expressive. But I would say that when you're approaching Congress and you're telling about these types of issues in a way that many people find it hard to swallow, that we not only are aliens real. I think most people could say, okay, like we kind of figured that's probably the case anyways. But to say that we're in possession of their technology and of them, or whatever they are, or these things, non-human intelligence. Some people say that maybe that they're ultra-terrestrials, that they're here, crypto-terrestrials, that we live amongst them, or they live amongst us. And I think that all of those ideas are valid. And until we can really do something more to explore that openly, and I do think that there are some academics who are trying to do what they can with the resources they have to say, hey, if this stuff is real, then let's take a look and let's make sure. And I think that was one of the impressive things about the mummy situation, is because as much as people threw flack at that, at least they were willing to say, hey, like, come look for yourselves. Like, we want people to actually know what this is and not just like say it's fake just because it looks weird. So I do think that there's some challenges in the public's perception based upon what the media does to portray it as such. But also like the idea of discovery, scientific discovery is not instantaneous with its declaration. So, if we come upon something and it is made out to be like a new discovery, it won't probably instantaneously be made aware to the public. And I think that's for good reason, because we like to think that like as soon as something is discovered, it's just going to blow up and everyone can know. And I think thanks to the internet, some things are made viral that way. But I think that it's important to keep in mind that like what you said about secrecy, people coming forward, the idea that if there are real programs that have been in the deep black, which is unacknowledged, there's no. And the other thing is that if you have corporations embedded within special access programs, which are or unacknowledged special access programs, if you have these corporations embedded within them, they aren't beholden to certain legalities or standards that the U.S. government or military is. They cannot be requested a Freedom of Information Act form or request to know anything about like the government can. So groups maybe like Northrop, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, any aerospace, McDonnell Douglas, any aerospace corporation or company like that's dealing with these things, they can do whatever they want basically, and not have to reveal anything because they're a private contractor.
Anti-gravity vehicles. And maybe all this little bit at a time showing the public is because they're going to reveal it. Because I'm sure if we have that technology, then other countries have the technology, and don't they want us to have it first and present it first? So maybe it's increments of showing us this and doing these hearings, because this is unheard of for them to say this, right? And I mean, probably in the next year, if this is a real thing, we're going to find out.
Well, I think that it's important also keep in mind that and this has also been discussed within the circle of this community for a long time, and it's affected people's lives as well. There's a good example of someone who claimed to have witnessed crashes and materials and things that he had suspected were of non-human origin. And he approached the military about all of these things, and they continued to reassure him of his own belief that they were, in fact, extraterrestrial crashes. And in reality, they were not. And they were using this as a way to make safe their own programs. And I think that is probably the reality in some way that accounts for a great deal of what's happening, to basically misinform and misdirect the public, so that not only are we, giving away what we have, but we're also not giving away our ability to detect things that are of anomalous capability, or what seems to be non-conventional, I would say. And so, it's one thing to say, oh, we have these craft and we have these objects, but it's also another thing to say we have the ability to detect whatever as well. And that, and unfortunately, in some way, gives away what we have and our capabilities to adversarial nations who, like you said, may have things that we don't really know about either. And so it's kind of like looking out into the historic situations during wartime to wonder, are what we seeing the people who saw the Foo Fighters, and these different things, they were wondering, are these Soviets, or do they belong to someone else? Like, whose are they? And they're asking the same thing. Are these the Allies? And so it makes us wonder, what are we really dealing with? Is there a like a disinformation campaign? Is there, or has there ever been, to dissuade the public that UFOs are, one, not real, which has been done, and then two, are real and are the cause behind some of what we're seeing? I think it's important to know that both of those things can be a reality at the same time. And the tough thing is just it's politicized, it's militarized as a political or military or intelligence agenda, to follow out with a specific plan, usually of funding. And I think that's where we have to be careful of looking at some of these intelligence community insiders, people that do come forward with claims that basically say things that I think make anyone's eyebrows raise and make us wonder, like, wow, this is an incredible story. What is there to it that we can really know? And so I think that when you look at certain people, and I'd say that the entourage of people around those like Lou Elizondo, Dr. Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and those who have had an involvement with the Department of Defense as contractors or as intelligence community insiders, I think this is an important part about like paying attention to certain individuals, not so we can just believe them, but to pay attention to what is being claimed and what kind of collectives are making a statement or a potential narrative that's being followed through. And so you have things like the Soul Foundation, which is another group that's looking to have continued funding to continue their work. And I think that with any scientific organization or institution, they're all out to get funding to work on anything. And that's the other thing too, is it's not really just because it's about the UFO topic, but because science itself requires a great deal of resources to make anything happen. This is just an exciting topic to a lot of people, so it's easy to use that as a way to, I guess, shift interest for people who are in those groups to be able to have the ability to kind of look at things like analyzing materials. People like Dr. Gary Nolan claim to test samples of materials and of biologics and things like this. And that's not, and they have the resources to do it. It's not something that anyone can easily do for free. And I think it all kind of points to it. We should be cautious of anyone who's claiming to have any involvement with these things, to the effect that we can at least have some transparency to know what the motives are, what's going on with the money involved. And I would say that about any organization that's doing anything with UFOs or whatever, even MUFON. I mean, it's important that there is transparency.
So Daniel, okay. So you're basically saying they're getting ahead of it, so they present it the way they want to and create the narrative. What do you say about Dr. Stephen Greer, SETI, and him talking about telepathically connecting and creating these groups, and they go outside and they mentally connect or send messages out so that they receive some kind of experience with UFOs?
Yeah, I think that's another important part about the community of people involved with this is very interesting. It's very diverse because you have different community outlooks all throughout the different groups. Dr. Stephen Greer, while I haven't met with him in person, I have talked with him over a conference call, and I do think that what he's doing is catching a lot of attention. He's popularized the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind protocols that he utilizes to help, as you said, get together with groups of people to initiate contact. And he worked with someone named Dr. Joseph Birx for a while, who coined the term HICE, which is an acronym for Human Initiated Contact Experience. And he would describe that CE5 protocols are one modality of HICE, of human initiated contact experiences, so that other people do different things. And I would say that with Dr. Stephen Greer, he is very much a controversial figure for a number of reasons, but I think that it's another voice to know that there's someone with a following who is also making statements and making grand claims. And I think that the process of what is being described is not unique to Greer. And I think Greer would probably say this as well, is that the whole idea of getting a group of people together as a collective is usually more potentially powerful in doing whatever, envisioning, manifesting, meditating. And the whole idea of what he's describing is a meditative experience. I've been involved with some CE5 efforts in different ways. And so I'd say that I've never had a fruitful experience with the groups I was in, but they would all tell you the same thing. Like 90% of the time, nothing happens. But it doesn't mean that nothing ever happens ever. And some people would say that it's been a very magical experience. What I would say about Greer is that he is not only advocating for the idea of initiating contact with something beyond humanity or human intelligence, but that his involvement with things early on, like the Disclosure Project, and the things he says about working within various administrations and being an informant and filling in different government people about the topic. It's very curious to hear some of those types of things, because like these are we're starting to stratify. Like talking about getting groups of people together to go meditate is one thing, and then telling that you're getting involved with the government and filling in presidential administrations and all of these things, that's another very interesting and important thing that we have to differentiate, because some people will say, I really like Greer. I like what he did with the Disclosure Project and bringing forward all these military witnesses. And that was over 20 years ago now. And some people would say that, but I don't like that many people do consider Greer to be a fraud because of the things that he's allegedly done to make flares and stuff like that. So, people, if you're in the public eye, it's hard to win everybody over. People will say all kinds of things about you either way. But what I would say about Greer is that he's still going strong. He's come out with a lot of documentaries. He still has a public presence. Right now, he's really big into this metallic sphere that people are wondering like what's going on with. And I think that he's got a foothold in the community in a way that is enticing, and it is a bit sensational. But the whole issue, I think, of captivating attention is sensational in a way that it's a balance. It's a balance of what's entertaining and in some way can keep people's attention, but also that digs into the real questions of like what's really going on and what can science help us with, and what can the public sector do to help be more well informed, so that we're not just completely like confused about all of this. But I think Greer's another voice that we need to pay attention to in a way that we can weigh it in to the other voices that are that have a platform. There's a lot of media out there. There's a lot of podcasters. A lot of people since COVID had gotten into the the media circuit of wanting to find something to do. So I'd say after 2020, you see this uprising and uptick, and a lot of people going to online venues to try to find information. There are still a lot of conferences and physical ways that people get together. And so the UFO community, if you could call it such a thing, is not all very unified in one specific way. You're dealing with pockets of people online. You're dealing with people who sit at home and watch documentaries or whatever it is through whatever media they can, who find out about people like Dr. Stephen Greer that way. And so I think that there is an effect that people who have a platform, and even a responsibility that they have to be able to share things in a way that it can be thought-provoking. But if you look at like network television is super sensational, it's entertaining, and that's about all you can really take it for. But it at least plants the seed in people's minds if they want to take it further and say, what is the reality to this? This guy or this show or whatever it is telling me about all of these interesting things, but what can I do as an individual with the resources I have to look further into it? For myself, I've been fortunate to meet with many of these individuals or groups and things in a way that at least I can do like the minimal I can to make a contribution to also share and to publish and do what I can to not just stay well informed for my own self, but to also be able to do that for others in a way that's tangible through the media I do as well.
Michael, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm just enthralled listening because this is not my area of expertise. This is Mary's area of expertise, but I'm fascinated by it. But the one thing that I would like to ask you, Daniel, is with all your research and you have a very vast knowledge base around this, and I like that you approach it in a skeptical manner. You want to get to the bottom line, but what would be the most compelling thing that you've seen or you've come across that you go, okay, now there's something to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people are like, when the congressional hearings happen, they feel like they're on the edge of their seat, like we're just around the corner, like something big's about to happen. So, I'm cautious about anytime someone says like it's coming up, like we're or something really big is happening. And I think that, yeah, big things can happen, and it's important to be prepared, be ready as best we can, or just to be alert. But in a practical sense, I'd say like the things that I think can be, because like it's one thing for one person to hold something and be convinced by that, to try to convince the world at large, or at least a good portion of the United States population. I think it's going to take some convincing. And my good friend Paul Hynek. Paul is the son of the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was a professor of astronomy in Ohio, and in the 50s got pulled into a project with the Air Force to investigate UFOs. Eventually became known as Project Blue Book, and he is the one who came up with the scale of encounters: close encounters of the first kind, which is a sighting of an object; of the second kind, which is something or things, people being affected physically by an object; and of the third kind, which is someone is witnessing occupants or beings or entities. Later things have been added, like the fourth kind, which are abductions, and the fifth kind, which we said is human-initiated contact. So Dr. Hynek has played a pivotal role in the establishment of tenets for this field to at least work with scientifically. His son, Paul, and Joel and his family have been fortunate to visit and spend time with. But Paul specifically has continued in some way, not continued his work, but to at least share about the Hynek legacy. And I would say that he's come up with a pretty great way to like elucidate the understanding of what is curious, what's compelling, and then what's really convincing. And everyone's got a different perception about how that works for them internally, because if you know someone really well and they tell you something, it's probably going to be convincing because of the relationship you have that's interpersonal. If you didn't know someone and you just were like, who is this person? But they showed you something at least convincing enough that passes your individual threshold, that's different for everybody. To your point, though, I think to your question about like what I would think could be helpful, I would say that the idea that there are technologies that have originated from something that we have been able to understand at least enough of to manufacture into functional human technology, that's an exciting thought. That in some way, and I should say this as an amateur anthropologist, amateur archaeologist, I love archaeology. I don't claim to be, anything other than just an enthusiast, but I would say that being someone interested in archaeology, I would love for there to be some kind of excavation or find that is completely contradictory to what we think of, historically speaking, that fits into the paradigm of a logical procession of events. And I think that because of something that has been alleged to have happened in this way, that something could be found that is different, that we somehow figure out at least enough of it to reverse engineer or backward engineer and make use of in our own manufacturing capabilities to then turn around, and if not just completely put into black projects, but then to put into society. That's exciting. And that is what Stephen Greer talks about with the energy crisis. That is what Colonel Corso talked about all these technologies springing up. That's highly contested. People would say that diminishes the ingenuity of human ingenuity. And, I'm not here to debate that, but I would say that like, it's the same as people ascribing to ancient astronaut theory, the idea that beings from wherever came here and built things that to us sometimes seem like it's impossible that ancient people or indigenous peoples could have done this. And, I think that there's some controversy about the outlooks. And so my interest has shifted not just to the direct case studies, but the overall cultural outlook and how we perceive these issues in a way that what would be convincing to a greater collective of society. Well, I do think that the congressional hearings get a lot of attention. I do think that the mainstream media is what a lot of people pay attention to. There are very few people overall who like really keep up with this subject to such a degree that we're talking about it like we are here. All the things that we're into in a way that we know that there are others that we can talk with. But the general person, like lay people, they might hear about it or hear something, but they're not keeping up with it in a way that maybe we're like, what's the latest? Like, what's the next interesting thing, or what's going on with this? So I would say that for there to be something convincing enough to really like bring to into the public eye and to view something, it would have to be so substantial that it can be corroborated across the board, and then you'd have to have some serious feedback from not just like scientific institutions, but also independent people who can verify things that that aren't beholden to a paycheck from this group or this special interest party. So I'd say if you can have like redundancy in the verifiability of something, that's exciting. So if it's like technologies, that's the like an interesting thing. But I would say overall, everyone just wants there to be a moment to where we can have an interface. I think that if we can establish a real solid, consistent interface, and I'm not denying that this can't or shouldn't happen or anything, because I think that people do tap into and can tune into organically, naturally into things that they can then in their way use as an interface to dictate, to express, or whatever and convey. Anyway, not to get too technical, but I do think that if we have a way to interface with non-human intelligence that's not animal intelligence as we know it, but something that really stands outside of the known field of science so far, publicly speaking, that it would set across the board like that there is something tangible that we can interact with, that whether it's present here or in some partition of reality. I don't even want to say dimension, because I think that word gets thrown around a lot and also becomes a bit of techno babble. I do think it's all interesting, but I would say if we can have a way using technology and using organic means and any other sense of redundancy that helps to like corroborate these things, if we can interact with non-human intelligence in a way that is very easily detectable and consistently done through repetition, and not just a one-off thing that this one specialty group is like saying that we have access to this entity or this being, and they only respond to us. I mean, I think that's red flags all over. But if we can do something that will show us not just, hey, here's a bunch of ancient relics, here's a bunch of the remains of a civilization, I think we're more likely to declare the discovery of the remains of something before we're going to say, oh, hey, here they are. By the way, here's so-and-so. What would you like to ask them? That's the idealized like reality that we want to, I think, attain as a society that wants to be able to embrace knowing that we're not alone. But I think in order to not completely disrupt society's foundations of worldview and things like that, that it would be easier in smaller stair-step ways to say, okay, like it looks like, wow, we're finding molecular organisms out on asteroids, out on planets. We're finding larger organisms, and we're finding the remains of geometry, of trace elements of manufacturing. I think that these are a little bit more digestible in a way that society can take and handle than just to say, oh, by the way, we've engineered this super hyper intelligent AI to talk with this like overt being that we can't actually see ourselves, but it can communicate with. Like, it's something that I think we have to consider, that in our lifetimes we'll probably be getting to a point of like people trying to do that. And I think that it's already kind of happening. And I would say that if it's not technology, if it's not some kind of like detection that's made here or elsewhere, and I do think that there are detections that are made all over the world that make us wonder, like, what's going on with this ancient site? What's going on with this very hard to get to site? Why are we finding what looks like manufactured um, interference at the bottom of the ocean or like in very remote places? It should make anyone wonder, how did these things happen? And so I think that there's a lot of curiosity with our ancient world, with how we understood things, why we don't understand things now. But also that's its own, you can get into that on its own. If we are to relate
Lake
that,
Tempe, places
right,
like that. Yeah.
I guess if we are to relate that to a higher order or a separate order of intelligence that humanity either exists with, has existed with, or that will at some point, that it's going to be easier for us as a society to think that the material remains are going to be easier for us to detect than if we discovered an intact human civilization somewhere in the remote wilderness that's been there the whole time. That's a shock for both of us. And I think that the challenge is the integration and how we can integrate amicably without there being total disruption on both sides. And I think that we see that all throughout history. I think that's what has interested me anthropologically about this subject more than anything in my more recent years, is that, you know, the ideas are fascinating. The practical effect of the integration, I think, will be a challenge sociologically and psychologically for us as individuals, because, and to quote and to kind of cite back to the person I mentioned earlier, Dr. Joseph Birx, he mentioned that as a social activist in his younger years, he realizes that the emotion that happens whenever something is acted upon is not instantaneous. And so this idea that there's going to be a big revealing might sound amazing, but if it were to happen, or if in any small increment of that were to happen, that society is not going to immediately just flip a switch and be like, we're different, we accept it now. But that it would probably be, what Dr. Birx would say, a generational change. It would take a while for us, not just maybe a few years, but a few generations for us to fully integrate. And I think that makes more sense as someone who's interested in these things from the anthropological point of view. I do think that you would have specialists who would need to find ways to make that less and, you know, mitigate the complications in a way. And so what I would say, Dr. Hal Puthoff, who has been a part of a main player in a lot of this narrative for years and on the inside of this, has said that he was a part of a group who got together with multidisciplinary individuals from all over, and they decided to do a scoring test that showed that depending on if this were to be revealed to the public, if aliens or extraterrestrials or non-human intelligence, however it's to be worded, if this reality, this alleged reality, were to be revealed to the public, how would we score it? What would be the detriment? What would be the pros and cons? And so they had all these specialists doing incredible different areas of work, you know, weigh in on this, and they scored a tally of points that ended up weighing more into the negative, which was to their conclusion that at that point, it doesn't seem that it would be a good idea to openly reveal all of this in this way because of how it would affect things as a detriment rather than to be as a way to augment society. I think that we can get to a point in society where we have to be embracing, and I do think in some ways it falls into a challenge more not just of the hard sciences, but of the social sciences, because there are a lot of interesting ways that I think this can be considered. And even there's the Planck principle. Max Planck, who was the founding father of like quantum theory, quantum physics, he came up with a lot of interesting things. There's this idea attributed to him called the Planck principle, which is that, you know, scientists will hold on to ideas even if they're incorrect, but because it's territorial, and they will continue to do so until they die. And I think that we're in a situation a little bit like that. Science, I think, should be able to explain the nature of reality as a developing model, not as here's what the model is. Don't mind reality showing us these interesting things. We're going to stick with what we have because we've written the books. You know, it's lining our pockets, all these, you know, territorial things. And I think that works also with archaeology, with historians, and many things. And it's not all to paint the entire, you know, sciences this way, but I do think it's all, you know, an individual and group collective basis. And I would say this because that it's important to note that these studies have been done to try to make an attempt at ascertaining if there is any potential crisis that can be averted. And to, you know, give another really cool reference, it's Thomas Kuhn's The Revolution of the structure of scientific revolutions, is that he basically said that it's out of crisis that we have what he coined a paradigm shift. So we could very well be on the precipice of something that leads to a crisis, not necessarily a crisis event, but a crisis of thinking, of a societal outlook, that here's how things have been, here's what our history models have shown us, but maybe it's when something presents us with such a contradictory situation that we have this crisis on our hands, societally speaking, that forces us to embrace something, to have the old ways unfortunately die off, or at least to develop enough to be accepting to the point of a critical mass of society to embrace the new ideas and the new discoveries, not just new ideas, to help explain what we see in nature and in reality better than the models that we might cling to because of possessiveness or territorial ownership and things like that. So I'm hopeful that we will have something that's a non-threatening, non-invasive, non-event occur in a way that can help us, have a smooth transition. But every revolution is not a very easy thing to go through. The idea of it is interesting, but I do think that overall, we're talking about one of the most important parts of our history ever, which is not just great inventions and great happenings, but like the integration of humanity with something that can parallel or greatly go beyond it and capability of in all ways potentially. And so that's exciting, and it's a little bit scary because the unknown can propel us forward and to spring into action, or it can repel us back and say, like, maybe some of these like black projects and these secretive things that have happened, crash retrievals, maybe they have had an understanding for a long time, or maybe they've said, we figured out some things and we kind of want to step back. Obviously this is very speculative, but there are the ideas that that these topics deal with something that taps into something beyond just nuts and bolts technology. And I think that's where the eye-opening change or shift in society really think would occur, in a way that, okay, this isn't just there are really weird flying things up there. There are, and they belong to someone else, but that someone else is more than just like maybe a flesh and blood species, and maybe it deals a little bit more with reality than people are comfortable getting into. So I think that those types of qualities, are hard to pinpoint into one thing. But I would say that going all the way back, and not to be too long-winded about all of this, but to what would be convincing, and I would say that it would have to be a redundancy occurrence regarding some kind of interface with non-human intelligence. Anything less would have to be technology that we can make detections of.
We're going to have to get going soon, but I just want to say that after this conversation, what I realize is, because I'm an intuitive and I know that people have this, not doubt, but they're not so sure that things are possible. Can you really psychically know what I'm, who I am, and this happened, and that angel really around me? I realize as an intuitive, I know people are going to have to see this themselves, and we cannot count on, me hearings and being a reveal. It's going to have to take a fleet of UFOs for everyone to believe that this is true. That's
the quick and easy answer, really.
What?
If they, whoever
they're
they
going to do
are,
it. They're going to say, you know what? These humans are never going to get it right. And it's time now, because here we were last summer, and Michael experiences, there were these strange things flying around here on the East Coast. And
drones.
I've had a ton of
drones everywhere.
Yeah, Michael had them down the shore. I saw them here where I live in New York. There was no explaining this. This was bizarre stuff that happened. I've had other experiences, but like, people have to see it for themselves. I don't think a television show where they're talking about it, like you said, it's a person of another. It's like 3 people out or 6 people out. Well, so-and-so told me that this happened, and I can't really talk about it, but I don't have any proof with me. We're all going to have to see it ourselves. No one's going to believe it.
I do think that it works obviously as like an individual basis, but there are certain things like the media does, and that these hearings are doing, and the people within the UFO community that are doing what they can to provide awareness, and all of these things are all an effort towards awareness of some kind. I do think that it's like you're saying, everyone will have a different understanding about what will be confirmation for themselves. I do think that if there's a critical mass event, meaning like something happens that enough people can be aware of and are convinced of, that will obviously be the nail on the head of something happening to change people's minds or convince people. And so I would say that right now, if we were to be the ones doing something to try to make it revealed, and then there's a lot of directions with that. But if it's in their hands to reveal themselves, however, whenever, I mean, it's always going to be up to them. I think in the event that we make the detection without them, wanting to, or if they're okay with that, that's a whole other thing too. But I would say that, it could just be a matter of whenever whoever they are ready to just say, hey, here we are. And it's not this kind of overt, like ambiguous thing. It's very clear of what it is. I think that would be, I mean, obviously like the most ideal. Some people will say that would be catastrophic disclosure. That term's being thrown around a lot now, and I think people have a different idea about what it means. But the whole thing would be like, we're going to reveal ourselves no matter what. You can, if you don't, we're still going to do it or whatever. But I think that would ultimately be the biggest thing, is if we could do something or see something completely undeniable, it would have to force people to change their perspective. And if they don't, that happens too. People will make up their minds either way, regardless of how many TV shows, congressional hearings, people coming forward with experiences, all of that. I do think that it all contributes to something, but I do think that it's something that everyone will have to make up their mind, or they will. And so like when I present information, I don't tell people make up your own mind about it, because they will anyways.
Yeah.
And if it's the most convincing stuff, even if it's like right there in front of them, some people, they'll say, well, I'd rather just stick to what I believe, because it's easier for me to work with that rather than to be challenged by something that contradicts my worldview. So everyone's got a different way about it. And I do think it's a very exciting time to pay attention. And it's something that I think we can learn a lot about. It's got a lot of potential because of the what if factor. What if this was all real? What if all these incredible stories have some shred of truth to them rather than not? So I'm hopeful. I do remain skeptical, but I'm hopeful that there are realities to these stories, and that we can find more. And that itself is inspiring, because I do think that regardless of all of this, if it was all fake for however difficult that would actually be, it doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we can still have new incredible things about reality that we can take part in, learn from, explore, and continue into the future.
Oh, but it's not fake. It's not fake.
Daniel, it's been a fascinating conversation.
Yes.
Anyone that wants to follow up and get more information on what you're doing, all this topic that we've been discussing, what's going to be the best way for any of our listeners to reach out and connect with you?
Well, I'm pretty well accessible on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and I do have my YouTube channel where I share media and videos on the Vortex. I haven't been too busy with that lately. I'm really trying to finish up my project on the Aurora, Texas legend from 1897. So that's something I'm really trying to focus in on. But you can also check out the Texas UFO Network. You don't have to live in Texas, but I also am trying to share more about different things in cultural studies with these different topics: UFOs, cryptids, the paranormal. It's all fascinating to me, and I really enjoy being able to understand what we can do to learn more about the cultural relevance of it all as well. So I'm just on social media. If anyone wants to continue the discussion, I'd be glad to do so.
I love it.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Well, you're very well versed. You have a lot of, you're not just saying statements. You really know your stuff. I'm really grateful that you joined us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. It's been a little while, but it's great to be back, and be glad to come on back again anytime.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Talk about paranormal.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you part of Two Psychics. My head's spinning a little bit because this is I'm just absorbing it all.
There's a lot to
but I
it.
find it fascinating. I find it fascinating, and very thankful that you were able to join us tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're going to continue this conversation at a later date for sure.
Let's pay attention and find out what's next and go from there.
We'll
Absolutely.
definitely get back to you after the fleet of UFOs shows up. All
Definitely have to do that.
right. Thanks, Daniel. Have a
Thank
great
you so
one.
much, Daniel.
Thanks,
Really
guys.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Oh, wow. Okay.
Ooh, that was a lot of information for me.
It
You know,
was.
I'm the
Isn't he
I'm the
interesting?
UFO novice here. So you and him are the knowledgeable ones. My head's just spinning, but it was good. It was good. No, I like that he approaches it from a skeptical standpoint. And he really wants to find the evidence and where's the truth. And for me, that's the way I like to approach things. Let's clear out all the nonsense. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's see what the truth is, and let's see where we can take this. And I find that fascinating, and I appreciate it when people approach it in that way.
It's true. And it's interesting because we had a guest last week, Eric, and he's a ghost hunter, and
Yeah.
and he was really, really very much like, I'm a debunker, I'm a skeptic, and that was the way he was in 2021. And I interviewed him around the same time that I had Daniel, and now Eric's like, oh yeah, a lot of stuff. And he's like, oh, more experiences. And it's interesting because Daniel kind of shifted. He's showing you all different sides of things. He said he's a researcher, and he's a writer, and and reports. So he's trying to really give a perspective of not telling you what he thinks, more or less sharing the facts, not trying to persuade you. I thought it was amazing because he really understands and knows a lot about it.
Yeah, he's definitely done his research for sure.
Yeah, he really has. Okay, so upcoming. So if you would like to reach out to Michael Edley and get a private reading or find out more about what he does, get his CD, you can reach him at eyeofthespirits.com. If you would like to reach out to me for, like, this past weekend, I did a party and I did readings for 3.5 hours, and it was fun. I had a great time. I haven't done that in a while. You can find me at maryamyofficial.com. Okay, so upcoming, I'm not going to give dates because it's getting all flipped around, but I'm going to tell you that we have a channel, Akashic Records, and Ascension Reader, Soma, who's a Palladian channel. And we have Bonnie returning. These are July. Bonnie, who's a clinical herbalist. And then we have Dana Louise, an abductee experiencer and an author. And we have Kelly from The Edge magazine. Okay, if you would like to find out more about Two Psychics, you can go to Facebook page Two Psychics Podcast. And we have any guests that we have upcoming. If you would like to find any of our shows, you can listen to it on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. You can watch us on YouTube or Rumble, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. If you want to reach out to me, Eye of the Spirits with Michael Edley on Facebook or eyeofthespirits.com. You can also find Mary Amy, her dream book, on Amazon. So if you want to delve into the world of dreams, make sure you pick up your copy.
Yeah. Or my children's book, Earthly and the Gemstones.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one too.
Yes, and we are so grateful for everyone out there. And please contact us if you would like a private reading on the show. We've decided everyone's going to be visible, so you have to show yourself. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone, have a wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next episode. Peace out.